Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and following on from my recent Hammer videos announcing that they're going to come out in 4K, glorious 4K, I want to take a time out here just to answer some questions that were raised on my last video. Now, there's some good points here that have been made, and I thought rather than just sort of go across them in the comments, I would actually read the comments out on the screen and I'd sort of talk about, and this is just my own personal opinion, how I think this Hammer horror restorations in 4K could go. First up is a comment from Mark Lee 2. Now, Mark has come out with a really good comment, which I know nothing about. Mark says, the Hammer news gets better, John. It was announced on the 10th of September that they have bought Silver Salt Restoration, a premier UK film restoration studio. They have worked previously with Arrow, Studio Canal and BFI. Now, this is great news because the worst thing that could happen is if this 4Ks came out and they were just lackluster, but it's really encouraging to hear this news. So we've been waiting for a few years for this to be announced, and we have seen Blu-rays come, good and bad. And the fact of this getting out in 4K now is like big news. If these previously released Blu-rays had just come out with a little bit of extra whatever in them, sound and vision, it would have been kind of, what's the point? We have got some cracking Blu-rays in the Hammer Pantheon. And why would we want to just get the same stuff again? More about this later on in some other comments, so don't want to get yourself too far ahead. But going by Mark's comment, we could be in for some seriously good restoration on the Hammer 4Ks. Next up is Mark Stewart. Now, Mark says, great news about Hammer 4Ks, John. Absolutely. I'm sure HDR will make the Hammer movies look stunning. Well, as we've said before, HDR is the star. Now, these movies, I pulled out a few movies here, predominantly like the likes of this one from Studio Canal. Studio Canal done an absolutely amazing job on their Blu-rays, and this looks absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best Blu-rays out there. As good as this Blu-ray is with added HDR, I think this would look absolutely insane in the quality. And that's all you really want. You want something to be an upgrade, because it's no point in putting these out if they're going to be the same. And I do think that HDR is going to play a massive part in this because, as you know, predominantly for most of their movies, Hammer were the sort of kings of horror in the colour medium. And don't forget that colour was just really coming out as a mainstream thing at this time. And it was wowing audiences. Don't forget, I think Hammer were the first people to sort of more or less put blood into their special effects. So a good call from Mark there. Let's hope they utilise HDR in the best possible way. Next up is Captain Trips. Now, Captain says, oh my God, that's great. You were only saying a few weeks ago that you were hoping Hammer would get into 4K. Well, I did. There's no way I would have known this one. If I'd known this one, it would have been the scoop of the century. It was just was kind of on my mind, especially with Scars of Dracula getting talked about and saying this was going to come out. It kind of ignited the fuel to make me say this is going to be the best thing ever if they do it right. Hopefully they release them in waves of about 4 at a time. I do agree. I don't want them all to sort of pile out. I mean, we have bought these time and time again. So Studio Canal, who were the first to release them on Blu-ray, they released them in waves of 4. And then it would be months before the next 4 would be out. So you had time to sort of readjust and buy the next lot. So I'd love to think that like there's a lot of companies involved with this, which we'll get into more on the later on. And I would like to think they're not all going to release them at the same time because it would be kind of free for all. It would be like too hard to keep up with it because there's a lot of good horrors here. And we obviously want to collect them all if we can. And would like a bit breathing space if we can. But that's a good point. Packaging wise, something similar to 88 Films Tygon range would be nice. Either that or a nice chunky matching boxes for each release. So exciting. Yes, it is. Now, I would like to think that there's only been 2 ever big boxes of the Hammer stuff on Blu-ray, and they look absolutely brilliant. They were released by Second Sight. But the main thing is that I do want these to be treated, especially movies like this, movies like Dracula. This is such a seminal movie, and you would think that this would have the best ever special edition ever. Would have been the first ever Hammer Dracula film. Same with Frankenstein. But it's a good edition. It's not a bad edition. It's got a lot of special features on it. But I wouldn't say that set the world alight. It hasn't got a slipcover or anything, never had a slipcover. So I would like to see them pushing out all the stops when it comes to the special editions with these ones, especially even these ones that they've released before in not exactly a great special edition format, talking about packaging here. But I would like to think now they would push the boat out and release the most amazing special editions of these seminal movies. Next up is Kevin Burke. Now, Kevin said, Great video, John. I'm excited about the Hammer 4Ks, aren't we all? And it will be also interesting to see if 88 changed the colour tone back to how it was. I hope so. Well, there was a big talk about when these were released. They were saying they were too colourful. Now, I don't think, personally, my own personal opinion, I don't think you can make Hammer too vibrant, because I think it's a vibrant medium, the way that they got everything and made it just the best look. It's always been the best looking colour movies in horror for me, bar none. And I would love it to stay that way. But if they've kind of over egged it and they want to go back to a bit more of the original colour palette, I'm thinking if they're going to do, whoever's going to release these ones, if they're going to go back to the original negatives and they're going to have the chance to make some kind of faithful to the original colour and not overblow it. I don't think they're overblown in my estimation, but I can see what Kevin's saying. He's saying maybe he thinks they were, so maybe they might want to tone it down a bit. But from a restoration from grassroots, they might get a chance to do that. So there's every chance. I know that people did complain about them being very colourful when they came out. Not all of them, but some of them. And I would like to think that they might be going to rein that in a little bit, or maybe make it a bit more faithful to what it looked like. But that's a good point. Next up was Paul Andrews, and Paul wrote, Hammer have announced 4Ks. It will be interesting to see what actually gets released, since the rights are all over the place. That's quite right. For the various Hammer films, Lionsgate, Warner, Sony, and Studio Canal all own some Hammer films. I suspect we will see the Studio Canal titles released. Me too. There are some other Hammer titles which have been released by boutiques. For me, my top picks for the Hammer titles were 4K would be Vampire Circus. What a classic that is. And it looks really nice as well. I love that one. But the lesser regarded films like Countess Dracula, yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing because it was released on Network. I think Network have done a decent job, but I do think it could have been better. And also The Hands of the Ripper might also stand a chance. Well, I would like to think, Paul, that everything will stand a chance. But you've got a good point there. There's a lot of things being released by different companies now. I would like to think, and I don't know anything about this, it's just me guessing. As we know, Hammer have been recently bought out by a bloke called John Gore. What a name. And it would be great to think that the company as a whole, including John, would own the rights to all the Hammer movies. Now, it's probably not that easy, but I'd like to think that they have an invested interest in some of them, or most of them, as to say that not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can put them out. They've got to go through Hammer before they can do that. Therefore, that makes me think that hopefully that Hammer have a say in this, and they might want to say, I know they will with their newer films, but with the older ones, they might be able to say it to somebody or farm it out to somebody, or they have the last call if somebody wants to put it out. They want to say, how are you going to put this out? Are you going to do a good job? No, we're just going to put the other one out. We're just going to put a bit of HDR in it and might say, probably, maybe, they could say, no, that's not good enough. We want you to do a full restoration. I mean, this is just me wishful thinking, it's pie in the sky. But I'm hoping that this finally will be the fact that maybe companies will get together. Who knows? Some companies from America and UK, like 88 and Vinegar Syndrome, work together on stuff. And Paul's completely right when he said a lot of companies have released Hammer over the years, some with better results than others. And I just hope that this is not going to become a thing that's going to spoil these 4Ks coming out. That's a really good point, Paul. Next comment is from Paul Chisa. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Paul. And he says, John, we need to take into account that there won't be a massive upgrade from what you already have, particularly with older movies. That could be quite correct. But I'm going to go to this one here, The Curse of Frankenstein. Now, this one, when this came out, I remember there was a bit of a kerfuffle with it because it was framed in the wrong frame as well. You do get two frames in here. And the fact that they put the matted version on was a bit daft to me. I thought it should put the square version out, the full frame one, because the other one was kind of cut for me. And also the picture quality here was noticeably bad. And I have seen this quite a few times. I had this on actually on DVD. The DVD looked much better in here color-wise. Now the big thing about the Blu-rays was the color upgrade. At this point, it was a massive upgrade from the DVDs because you had this added color bonus that you could get from Blu-rays. Now, this one was like visibly like what's going on here. Now, don't forget this is from Lionsgate. This is another company. Now, Studio Canal have been releasing all of these ones. I thought they were going to release the whole lot, but they kind of stopped because other people got into it. And they released, Lionsgate released this, and there was a lot of people saying this just doesn't look right. And they were saying that's just the way it is. That's the way it came out. Now, I do think that this one here, I know there's been a better Blu-ray about with this one, but I do think if they can go to the original negatives and get, especially for the UK, because we've only seen this one over here. I know we can import the other disc, but if you can see this one especially, this one will be a massive upgrade. And I can't wait to see. I really, this is one. This is why this is one of my first ones I want to see restored, because I think that the restoration, especially on this one, was really, really poor. And we were getting fobbed off by saying that's just the way it is. But that's not the way it is. Everybody knows that. Now, don't forget, a lot of these haven't been remastered for a lot of years. We're going back to the early 2010s here. And it just shows you that the technology has moved on quite a bit. So what I'm hoping is, this is all my wishful thinking coming out again, I'm hoping they will go back. No AI, don't want any AI on this at all. I just want to go back and do a faithful restoration. Now, the best thing about hearing about that restoration company, now they've done work with Arrow, say, and I know that their stuff has always looked actually like brilliant. So the best thing about that is I don't think they'll employ AI. I think AI is for the big companies. They can do that. We can't stop them. That's just the way it is. The big sort of Warner Brothers and all that. But the ones that like tackle this don't seem to be the ones that do that. So fingers crossed that's not going to be a thing. So yes, there is an element that we will might get some because this one here, it looks that good. It might not be able to look that much better on 4K. I do think the colours will look better, but I would like to see a new restoration because this has been out for a good 10 years, and the restoration process now will be 10 years better than was on here. Even though this looks absolutely amazing. But yes, good point. But I'm hoping that with new restorations, that will make these worthwhile picking up. Next is 88 Paratize. He says, not necessarily 4K disc though, right? Could just be 4K digital releases. Now, the thing I'm thinking about that is, well, you might get a digital release, but I'm hoping that's just going to be a side project. I do think, judging on the fact of all these amazing Hammer horrors coming out in the past, they've been coming out, always on physical. I haven't got any of them now. They've been 4K digital releases. Now, I would love to think that Hammer haven't announced this to say, we're listening to you, we're going to put the 4Ks out. We've got these people involved with us, and maybe it's going to do the restorations. I'm hoping what they're not going to do is they're going to say they're all coming out on a 4K platform. That would be, for me, that would be a massive cop out. And you think, but the problem with that is you get the 4K on the streaming. Yes, you can stream it. Yes, you can see it in a better quality. But everybody knows that the 4K discs are much better than 4K streaming. And you will never own the disc, never own the movies, will you? Because everybody would want to own these. I know I would. So I'm hoping that that's not the way it's going to go. Yes, put them out in 4K digital, whatever, but also predominantly you've got to put them out on 4K discs because they have done in the past. Now I'm really hoping that they're going to keep that up, and I can't see why they wouldn't. So last up is Simon Film Fan. He says, very expensive though. Yes. Then again, we might all get nuked sooner or later. May as well spend your money. Well, that's a little bit nihilistic, but these days you never know. I do think that there is there's two schools of thought you can see in this. We have spent a lot of money. I mean, all of us have spent a lot of money on these Hammer stuff over the years. Now, the only good thing about that is we've spent it over the past maybe 15 years. So if you think about it, it's not as if you've had a massive like shelling out in one go. Hopefully, they'll space out the 4Ks in the same manner where they'll come out, sporadically. The other thing is you could always maybe sell the other ones. You can sell the old Blu-rays. You probably won't get much for them these days. You might get some for some of them, but it is one of the things that us collectors always have, the problem about upgrading. Now, for me, I do think 4K will be the last medium that collectors will ever have to upgrade to. I think 8K will never happen. I think 8K disc will be too expensive to start off with. They'll never go near all of this stuff at all. I don't think there'll be any 8K restorations going. And I think the 8K TVs are actually stopped now because I think they're bad for the environment. So I do think that you will never ever see that happening. So this will be, we've said this plenty of times, going back to myself in 1980, whatever, 1986, thinking, oh, I've got this on VHS. This is the best thing ever, isn't it? I don't need to buy this again. How wrong we were. And my own personal wish for this is for the companies not to just do a cash grab. I hope Hammer have an influence in them. I hope they'll go back to the original. If anybody wants to do a 4K, they're more than welcome to do it. But they've got to go back to the original negatives if they can get them. And they've got to give it the absolute, like, top restoration that they can get their hands on. And I have a lot of faith in this is going to happen. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers here, but that would be the best possible way. But I've really enjoyed looking at the comments here, and it's raised up some really good talking points. And I just thought I would come into a video and actually talk about them rather than just write them down as a reply to the comments. So that's my thoughts. So thanks to everybody who's commented on the hammer videos. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.